Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about Othello, Act 1, Scene 2, and I have here some special guests to help out with today's lesson. We have Aidan, Tyler, Steph, and Peter, and the boys and I today are going to be talking about some important ideas and concepts that are present in Act 1, Scene 2 of the play. I think Act 1, Scene 2 is really important because it's actually the first time we meet the title character, Othello, and we meet him as a foil to the antagonist who we already met in Act 1, Scene 1, Iago. One of the first things that happens at the beginning of the scene is that Iago says to Othello, he was talking to somebody and he wanted to punch him in the ribs. 9 or 10 times I had thought to have yerked him here under the ribs. And Othello replies, he just says, "'Tis better as it is." And I was wondering what you boys thought about your initial impression, those first lines of Othello as Iago is trying to get him all fired up and upset about something. What did you think about Othello's reaction? How would you characterize it?
Well, first of all, that really hit me in the stomach. But it shows Othello's calmness. What he is saying is just let it be. Othello's not an impulsive person. He likes to think through his decisions, and this shows that he doesn't want for an action to occur that will have unnecessary consequences, right? And that would be Iago punching this man in the ribs. So this really just shows his well-tempered nature, and it also shows Iago's, bad temper, right? He just, I'm gonna punch him, just out of an impulse. So it really shows, we have Othello who has a good temper, who's patient, and then Iago who has a bad temper, who's impatient.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler. Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. They're pure foils, Othello seems so cool, calm, and collected because Iago seems so ready to fly off the handle at a moment's notice. They're polar opposites, absolutely. For our next question, another line that Othello has earlier in the scene is when Iago says, "You gotta hide because Brabantio and his men are leading this raised search party against you. They're coming to get you." Othello says, "Now I must be found. My parts, my title, my perfect soul shall manifest me rightly." So when we think about that particular line, what does that tell us about Othello's level of confidence here as he might be confronted by Brabantio later in the scene?
Well, he doesn't mind going to meet out Brabantio, and Brabantio is a very high official who has a lot of power in the society. So his not being afraid of going to meet him and speaking shows that Othello is extremely confident in his innocence and that he has not done anything wrong. And it's just amazing how he's how he fearlessly walks up to a man who is in almost all ways in that society better than Othello, and just says, "I'm not guilty, so I will be able to do this," and just doesn't heed Iago's warning and goes out to meet the senator.
Yeah, that's a really good point there, Steph. If anyone were searching for us, we'd probably all be nervous. And not only that, but the person who is looking for him is somebody of very high stature in the society, and that could definitely be something that would scare a lot of us. But Othello is not deterred by that. He has complete and utter confidence that he has done nothing wrong. Awesome. Within Act 1, Scene 2, there's an important allusion. Iago swears to the Roman god Janus. And in all of Shakespeare's plays, to my knowledge, Iago is the only character who does that. Characters swear to Jove, to Jupiter, to Juno, to God, to Christ, to Jesus. They swear to Saturn. They swear to all sorts of gods in Judeo-Christian mythology, in Greek mythology, in Roman mythology. But I think Iago is the only one who swears to Janus. Peter, what do you make of that? Why is that allusion significant?
Well, Janus has two faces and is the Roman god of guarding doorways. And that kind of shows multiple personalities, different ways of seeing things. And Iago, since he's saying it, it's kind of a reflection of who he is as a person, that he may be that's his god that he has his respects to, because he obviously shows multiple personalities. He's friends with Rodrigo, and then he switches, and he's friends with Othello. And he kind of switches back and forth between multiple people with different personalities, and kind of shows through this god who may have different personalities and different faces, that he presents himself in different ways, whichever will get him farther with whatever his plan will be.
Nice, nicely done. Yeah, and that way I guess you could call it indirect characterization, because I like how he said it's the God that he pays his respects to. So it shows us a lot about what he values. And you're right, already he showed to be very two-faced because he's totally nice to Rodrigo in Act 1, Scene 1, but by Act 1, Scene 2, he's ready to fight him. Last question for you guys is about Cassio. Cassio appears and he says that the Duke requires Othello's appearance, even on the instance. Something from Cyprus, as I may divine. This is the first time we meet Cassio, and he's serving basically as a messenger calling for Othello to the Duke. Why does Othello need to see the Duke at this time in the play?
So the Duke calls for Othello because they need to defeat the Turks in Cyprus, which is a island that is key to their victory. And it shows how much the Duke trusts Othello and his military abilities. He's built up this reputation of being like a serious military leader, and even on such short notice, the Duke can come to Othello for help in military affairs.
Nice, awesome job. Yeah, there's short notice, there's an urgency involved. They need him there. And I like how I use the word reputation because that's going to be a really important theme for this play. Carrying on, Cassio and Iago talk a lot about reputation in upcoming acts, so that's a really good preview. But yeah, Othello is highly regarded by the Duke, and it shows that even in the middle of the night, he is urgently required to help out with the military. Something from Cyprus, absolutely, very nice. And the last thing I want to talk about today was a famous line. When Othello is finally confronted by Brabantio, Brabantio draws a sword, and Othello's standing there, and someone is ready to stab him. A very high-ranking member of society pulls the sword on Othello and is accusing him of some very serious things like kidnapping. And Othello says 11 syllables. He says, "Keep up your bright swords or the dew will rust them." Basically, if we're going to fight, I will kill you, your sword will fall to the ground, and it'll still be there in the morning dew will rust your sword. It's quite a threat, but that's all it is. Othello does not intend to do anything to Brabantio and the raised search party. In fact, he says that his age will command more respect than his sword. Othello respects Brabantio more because he is older than because he's threatening him. It tells us a lot, I think, about Othello, that he can be confronted, accused of some really serious crimes like kidnapping. They say some really racist things to him. They call him sooty, dirty. They equate the color of his skin with dirt. And any one of these things could probably cause somebody to fly off the handle and become really upset because they're so threatened and offended. And yet Othello doesn't. With those 11 words, he takes control of the scene. And everybody is now listening to Othello. Brabantio, Rodrigo, Iago. Basically, Othello stops it all. It could devolve into chaos, but with those 11 lines, Othello takes charge. I think it shows a lot of poise and confidence on his part, and it shows that he is able to take charge of a scene with his presence and with his words, and that he doesn't need to use physical action, even though he is physically very imposing and very strong. He doesn't need that to command the respect of all the characters in the room. So at the end of Act 1, Scene 2, Brabantio and Othello are off to see the Duke about Cyprus and about the charges of kidnapping that are being brought against Othello. And tomorrow for Act 1, Scene 3, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. All right, I'd like to say thank you to Aidan and Tyler and Stefan and Peter for helping out today. And until next time, we'll see you next.
Well, we like to say something like
And subscribe.
Comment below.
Awesome job. Thank you, guys.